Hi, everybody. My name is Angelica from the Math Magician Bookkeeping. I'm one of the students in Bryce's coaching program, and today I'm going to be sharing with you tips for new bookkeepers and how to grow your business. So, I don't know if you've ever seen any of my videos before, but I have my own bookkeeping business, and I joined Bryce's coaching program to help me grow my business with as far as like getting more clientele and stuff. But when I first started my business, I worked at an accounting firm, and so I was able to get some experience from that. But honestly, I had to learn a lot of things kind of along the way. And there were certain things that I wish that I would have known whenever I first started my bookkeeping business, even certain fundamentals of bookkeeping that I wasn't really quite taught whenever I worked at an accounting firm. Because when I worked at the accounting firm, it was mostly for like they would have me categorize and reconcile, which is great, but they never really sat down and actually went over the basics with me of, accounts receivable, accounts payable, accrual method versus cash method, and all these other things that I just never really had an opportunity to learn about. And so before I started my bookkeeping business, I was enrolled in an online college to get my bachelor's in business management and then accounting. And I was actually able to learn certain things through that, and that did help me a lot. But basically, what I'm trying to get to is if you're a new bookkeeper and you're starting out and you may not know where to go, and it's kind of embarrassing to ask someone to go, "Hey, do you mind showing," like, my cousin is a CPA. She's the one who got me into bookkeeping in the first place. And there's been moments that I've been kind of not so sure on things and feeling like I could ask my cousin, but I feel really stupid having to do that because I'm a bookkeeper. This is the career path I chose. I should know these things, right? And sometimes that's not the case. And I know that there's a lot of things going around out there, and maybe you are looking for maybe you are completely new to bookkeeping, have no idea anything about it, and you're choosing to do bookkeeping because it is a easy job to be able to do remotely. It is something that is just as a college student, something to have as kind of like a side hustle as well. And whenever you're actually making money with it, it can be a pretty lucrative business. There's little overhead. And so I could see why people would want to do bookkeeping because it's the same things that appealed to me. I currently live in a school bus tiny home, and eventually I plan on traveling the country with my husband. And I knew that I wanted to actually get into bookkeeping and accounting just based off the fact that eventually I would have my own business. I figured it would be years down the road before I ever would. I figured I would have to graduate college and then like worked at an accounting firm for at least 5 to 10 years before I could ever break out on my own. But once I started looking into it and realizing, like, hey, I actually don't need to do some of these things, I was better equipped to kind of break out onto my own. I'm an only child, and so I've always been really independent anyway. And not that I don't take direction very well, but I just do better working on my own. Plus, I'm introverted. I just work better by myself in my own little bubble than having to be in a group setting. I'm not very good at the let's share the group project when no one else wants to contribute. You know what I mean? So I know for a fact I am contributing, and that, that's all that really matters. So let's stop babbling. I'm going to go over some of the things that a new bookkeeper should know. So I actually am the worst at doing these live videos sometimes and ill prepared, especially since I have a little kitten, and he's an inside only kitten, and we, like I said, live in a school bus, and there was a little hole where mice were getting in and he would catch them. Well, I guess the hole was big enough for him, and he got out somehow, and we haven't been able to find him all day, and I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning trying to find him, and it's been crazy. So I am so ill prepared right now, but let me grab my notebook and I will be right back with you guys. One moment. Whoa. Okay, sorry about that. So, like I said, I have my little notebook here, and I have a ton of different items here associated with starting a new bookkeeping business. And things that I wanted to go over with you are not only just how to do the bookkeeping, but like how to actually get your business set up, so on and so forth. And I wanted to kind of see what your response is to this, because in Bryce's coaching program, he teaches a lot about the marketing side of things, but we're actually going to be implementing some of this into his bookkeeping program, where I will be able to kind of be able to teach you guys how to set up your own business, bookkeeping fundamentals, what is bookkeeping, why we do it, going through QuickBooks, how to get certified, some of the features in QuickBooks that you'll actually need to know, using QuickBooks, inventory, payroll, so on and so forth. And then once you have an understanding of the bookkeeping fundamentals and how to get your business actually on track and going, then Bryce will step in and he'll be able to go over more information of how to gain more clientele and where to look for that, how to market yourself, setting out to find referral partners, subcontracting work, so on and so forth. And so he's got really great ideas of that. And so we're going to be implementing that into his new program coming up soon. And so I wanted to kind of see how people would enjoy that. And if that's something that you'd be interested in doing, then we can definitely set up a time to talk and see if you would be right for that program. So one of the things that I'm going to be teaching in this bookkeeping course is setting up your business. So I'm going to be talking about the business name, legal structure, getting a business license if you need one, setting up an EIN, state IDs, bank accounts, insurance, email, working remotely, your website, setting up even to get business credit going, and then your bookkeeping fundamentals. So what are bookkeepers and what is bookkeeping? Why do we do it? Why is it important? Going over the difference between income versus expense, assets, liabilities, and equity, explaining equity, going over the accounting equation of assets, liabilities, and equity, debits versus credits, chart of accounts, business entities, and financial statements, how to be able to actually look through those. And then we'll be going through a QuickBooks guided tour. So I'll be showing you QuickBooks and then showing you some of the training that you can do, how to actually become a pro advisor and get certified through QuickBooks, and how to also use some of the QuickBooks apps, using the sample company, which is very important to learn. And I'm actually in my own business, I had a business consultant just reach out to me, and he wants to collaborate with me and basically have me help out some of his clients by doing some QuickBooks training to the specific clients. And so I'm going to be doing that soon, and using the sample company to kind of demonstrate certain things. But the sample company, when you're starting out as a bookkeeper, is super helpful in being able to kind of familiarize yourself with QuickBooks. And one thing I really want to do is kind of do a guided, here, do this with me type of situation. And I might even do it with my own actual clientele, where I'm showing you kind of my process and you can follow along with me in the sample company. And then also just knowing how the interface of QuickBooks looks. There's like a whole dashboard and a whole, this leads to this thing and this leads to this thing, and it can be kind of confusing when you look at it. So kind of going over that, going over the company settings, how to actually set that up for a customer whenever you do have a clientele, whenever you need to look something up for them in their settings, how to use that. And then just the actual using QuickBooks, which will come on hand in hand with that sample company, but adding in products and services, customers, sales receipts, invoices, getting payments, billable expenses, vendor credits, credit card credits, pretty much the whole 9 yards of QuickBooks. It's going to be very thorough and in depth. And then, like I said, it will lead into Bryce's marketing. So that's kind of the structure that we're looking at for this new course that we're going to be doing for people that are actually starting out their bookkeeping business. But let's talk about this video in particular right now. So you are probably likely watching this because you either have your bookkeeping business started or you are actually thinking of breaking out and doing your own bookkeeping business. And so let's start off with a little snippet of what this course that I'm talking about is going to go through. So let's give you some information on setting up your business and coming up with a name. So this is actually going to be legitimately step by step how to set up your business. So if you already have your business, this may not matter to you, but I'm going to go through it anyway. So one of the things is to come up with a memorable name. You can do this with a play on words, kind of like how I did with my business. I did the Math Magician Bookkeeping. I actually just changed it to the Math Magician Services, since I am implementing more cash flow and business advisory. But basically the math magician, and that's play on words of mathematician, magician, and I kind of morphed those together of being able to provide services so good that it will amaze my clients. Just something kind of corny and dorky like that. You don't have to be as cheesy as I am, but kind of come up with your own play on words. You could use your name. That's a very generic way to do it. There's an alphabetic strategy. I know a lot of businesses will start their business with the letter A specifically, so that way they are listed, shown on like the list first. And this used to be really prevalent in the days of like Yellow Pages and all that, where you would literally be the first thing that someone looked at whenever they went into the Yellow Pages. But other than that, you can use an alphabetic strategy to kind of get more interest. I know there's even other strategies of like using amazing or wonderful or like those kind of not synonyms, not verb. Wow. Not the adjective, using those adjectives to describe your business are kind of a thing. So I did something similar with the Math Magician, where you kind of get the implication that this person is a magician, like they're so good, that it's like magic before your eyes. And so that's kind of what I was going for with that. And then you can just have kind of a more generic bookkeeping / accounting name. You could have it be just, something about books. You could just be like so-and-so's books, or, something that goes along with accounting terms. Decimal, which is a company that already exists. Um, I can't think of everything right now. I'm sorry, my mind is blank. But those are some examples that you could think of when you're trying to come up with a name. And then if you're doing something more than finances, I would leave it more generic. Like I just said, I changed my name from the Math Magician Bookkeeping. I was a sole proprietor. I just changed to an LLC, and my LLC now is the Math Magician Services. It leaves it a little more wide open. That way I can provide a number of services instead of bookkeeping. That way, if I ever wanted to go into tax or go into become an enrolled agent, like I said, I'm going to be doing this QuickBooks training for certain people. And so if I want to do some kind of consultory work, that leaves a little more open-ended instead of just bookkeeping, where people think I just strictly do bookkeeping, when yes, in fact, I do, but there's a little more that I want to add into my little repertoire. So if you're thinking of doing something like that, or if you have bookkeeping and tax, or you're an enrolled agent and you do bookkeeping, something like that. I try to make sure a domain name is available for any potential name as well. Yes, that is a very good point. And I literally just revamped my whole website. Like literally at the beginning of the year, I went through and changed everything over to an LLC. And like I said, left it a little more open-ended with the Math Magician Services instead of bookkeeping. And so I put in all my new services, and basically I changed my domain name from the mathmagicianbookkeeping.com to the mathmagicianservices.com. That way people are able to find it that way. And like Jason said, yes, it is very important to make sure that you have a domain name. This is going to add a lot to your professionalism, and making sure that you are going to attract people specifically to you instead of like someone else's name. So that's a little about the name. Now let's talk about your legal structure that you're trying to set up. So there are 5 different types, pretty much. You have your sole proprietor, you have your LLC, S corp, C corp, and nonprofit. So let's talk about sole proprietor. I have spent the last 2 years as a sole proprietor, and I have gotten away pretty easy with everything. And the reason I switched over to becoming an LLC is because I wanted to start obtaining some business credit for my business. And that is something that I will talk about more in depth in the course that I was talking about of how to obtain it. But basically, as a sole proprietor, there are pros and cons. So all of these have pros and cons, and I'm going to list them all for you. I'm so sorry that this is so bouncy right now. I don't know if it's just because it's super windy and it's shaking the bus or what. But as a sole proprietor, here's some of the cons. So there's more risk. Well, let me just go through this the way I have it written out, which it makes no sense at all. But there's more risk, yet there's no corporate business tax. So you don't have to worry about paying a corporate business tax, but there is more risk, meaning that you are personally liable for anything that happens within the business. If someone tries to come after you, they could possibly take away your vehicle, your home, pretty much any of your belongings. And, that puts you at a great risk. Whereas as an LLC, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and other corporations, those give you some protection. That way you are covered, at least if something happens within your business, or let's say your business goes under and you're unable to, make some of the payments that you had agreed to do, then you won't be personally liable for that if you do something else. But as a sole proprietor, then yes, you are going to be financially responsible for everything out of your own specific pocket personally. So just like I was saying, there's no distinction between individual and business. So whenever I file my tax returns at the end of the year as a sole proprietor, I'm actually filing my individual tax return with my business information. So instead of doing a W-2 as a hired employee, I'm just doing I think it's a 1040. I can't remember what it is right now. But doing something along that Schedule C, I believe it is what it is. And then I'm able to file, but it goes in my personal stuff as opposed to having an actual business tax that I would have to do at the end of the year for tax returns. But there's easy setup, low cost, no annual report / filings. So I don't have to go through a whole rigmarole. It was really easy to set it up. I did pretty much like a DBA, which is a doing business as, and then setting up a trade name. Basically, I would highly suggest getting a trade name set up for yourself. If you're going to be doing anything, this basically kind of gives you permission to be using that name for your trade. And it's like a little certificate of, showing that you're an actual business entity. And it just kind of differentiates hey, the Math Magician Bookkeeping is different than Angelica Renaud, even though I am the owner of it. And then we already went over this liability for personal belongings, and it can be deemed as unprofessional. So a lot of people will kind of go, well, that's bottom of the barrel. Of course, that's the easy way out. Not 100% sure how much I trust you for doing that. I haven't really ever had any clientele raise a finger at it or blink an eye, but I'm sure there are probably potential clients that have looked into my website or found out I was a sole proprietor and kind of, I'm a little unsure of it, but it does kind of come off a little unprofessional sometimes. But I would highly suggest if you're just wanting to get your business started, that is a very easy, low cost way to do it. So then let's talk about LLC. So this means limited liability company. This doesn't 100% protect you if something happens within your business, but it does have limits. So it is limited liability. So you're no longer going to be personally liable as much. I mean, it really honestly depends. But within LLC, you can also have partnerships, other members, and profits would go directly to members without being taxed. And then you pay tax on profits on your own federal tax returns. You would have to pay self-employment tax. So you're personally responsible for paying Social Security and Medicare taxes if you are making more than $400 in income. So that is something that you would have to do as an LLC, and something that I'm going to have to start doing soon as well. And then there is a possibility if you have a partner or another member. This is a big drawback to an LLC, but if a member leaves bankrupts or dies, then the LLC has to be dissolved. The whole entire company has to be dissolved, and the rest of the members are financially responsible for terminating the business and taking care of the business needs. So you would have to literally start over a whole entire new business entity to pretty much get started. If a partner decides they don't want it anymore, if something happens, if it's a little scary to think about that everything that you worked for could just kind of go down super easily that way. So that is one thing to keep in mind. So then let's talk about the S Corp. So S Corp is just kind of a step above LLC, but it is corporation based, and you can choose to pay on the salary you take, not the business profits. So like I said with the LLC, you pay tax on the profits that you make within your business. So the income that you make within your business. As an S Corp, you only have to pay on the salary you take, not the actual profits and income that are coming into the business, which is really nice whenever you think about it of, you know, if you're, taking home however much you decide to pay yourself, then you're only going to be taxed on that instead of it could be thousands of dollars that you're bringing in for income, but you could only be paying yourself. But it does have to be a reasonable salary. You can't just cheese it and go, oh, I choose to pay myself $250 a month. No, that doesn't fly. You have to pay yourself a reasonable salary, and they have to have it documented. And what's nice about the S Corp as opposed to the LLC is it can exist indefinitely. So even if something happens with one of the members or partners, then it can still continue to exist. Ease of ownership transfer. If you decide, hey, I no longer want to have anything to do with this, but my partner is really good, you can easily transfer that ownership over. Or if someone new comes in to the business that you, as the business manager, and you feel like they are better inclined to actually be the owner of that business, then you can easily transfer that ownership. It's easier to raise capital to attract investors and get loans. So, what that basically means is more loan officers and investors are going to want to look to work with you because of the status of having an S Corp, probably because there's less risk involved of having of not worrying about the company going under if a member isn't doing something, or just knowing that the ownership is transferable. Also knowing that there's less personal risk involved. Those lenders and investors are going to be more interested in that as opposed to something that's going to be a little riskier for them, like a LLC or sole proprietor. They're seen as more stable, like I was just saying. But there are more tax obligations. So you have your 1120S and 941 quarterly tax. You have to keep highly detailed records. Pretty much any going on in the business, you need to keep record of that because you are under more scrutiny from the IRS. They want to make sure that they're getting what's theirs and that you are not fudging the system and doing any fraudulent activity. And then have a limited number of shareholders. No more than 100 can be in an S Corp. And then, like I said, you must pay yourself a reasonable salary. So then we have a step above that, the C Corp. So remains in business after the owner leaves. So they may not have to transfer ownership. They can still leave the business, but it will still remain in effect. And then you can deduct your business expenses and employee benefits as opposed to the other ones. You get lower tax rates, and then you can split your profit and loss between business and owners for lower tax rates. And then you have double taxation. So this is one of the cons of it. You'll be double taxed. So you'll be taxed on your income that you're getting within the business, and then also dividends, which is pretty much the money that you're taking out of the business to pay yourself and other shareholders with. So it's similar to the S Corp, then you're getting taxed again on the actual profit that you're making within the business as well. You cannot deduct for corporate losses, but on personal tax. So that is kind of the differences between some of those business structures. And I know I said nonprofit in there as well, which basically means if you are setting up a business for charitable means, Churches, hospitals, stuff like that, they are usually considered a nonprofit. But most bookkeepers don't usually set up something like that, but I didn't really write down a whole lot of information on that. If you want to, we could go and discuss more of that some other time, or if you had questions for me, you can leave it in the comment section here and I can come up with another video sometime on it. But then besides that, once you actually come up with your business name, once you actually decide what legal entity that you want to be, then you can possibly obtaining a business license. So I actually reached out to my county here in Tennessee, and they told me I did not need a business license. So some places require it, some places don't. I'm going to look into this again now that I'm an LLC, though, because I did that as a sole proprietor, and see if they still need me. But basically, you would need to contact your city or county, and you may even need to contact your state, depending on what state you're in. And then if you do set up as anything else other than a sole proprietor, you will need to get a EIN. And the sole proprietor is going to be based off of your personal social security number, and an EIN is going to be an employer identification number, and this is going to be used for everything higher than a sole proprietor. And you can register your EIN through www.getmyein.org. And you already have to have your legal entity, your business entity set up, though, to do that. And EINs are important because they are for federal use, and they're used for hiring employees, getting business loans, license applications, and then doing your federal tax returns. So, like I said, for instance, whenever you're hiring an employee, you will need that identification number. If you think about if you've ever worked a normal job as a W-2 employee, whenever you get your W-4, you'll see a little number that they always ask for when you're filing your tax returns, and that is the EIN. That's your employer identification number. That means that they can be able to track everything from that actual employer, which would be you if you did that. So EINs are for federal use. State IDs are for your state. Now, I don't really need anything statewide, but depending on your state, you may need certain identifications. Like, I don't have any employees, but I know you will need some kind of state ID for unemployment tax and like unemployment insurance, all that good stuff. So those are things to think about. And then as far as banking goes, whenever you are setting up your business, you're also going to need to separate your personal and your business finances. So the best way to do this is to open a new bank account as a business. And if you are a sole proprietor, you're going to set it up under your social. If you are a actual EIN holder, then you would set it up under your EIN, but you would need a business checking account, business credit card, something like that. But basically, you just want to separate your personal and your business finances. Never mesh those together. Never. Any business, if you have any business at all, never mesh your personal and your business finances together. And as a bookkeeper, you probably know this, but if you're starting out, you may not. So keep all your income from your business in that account, and then every expense out of that account, whether it be an actual checking account or credit account, what have you. And then choose your banking establishment of choice. I personally bank with, my business, I use US Bank. I'm not sure which kind of checking situation I have set up with them, but I know that I don't have to pay a monthly fee for anything. I feel like there's a decent amount of business checking accounts that you usually have to pay some kind of monthly fee, but there are some like US Bank that don't require that. So at least for the one that I signed up for, which was like for smaller businesses or something. But I'm sure that you can find something along those lines that doesn't have any fees. And what I would say to start building your business credit, I'm going to give you guys a little snippet here, is choose a bank that will report to 3 different credit bureaus. That way, whenever have that bank actually send out that information to 3 different credit bureaus to be able to keep track, because that is one thing that you will need as a requirement to get your business credit rolling. And then, like I said, use your EIN or DBA / social security number if you're a sole proprietor to register whatever bank account you choose. Next, let's talk about business insurance. So there's business liability, you got your health insurance, and then something that's real important for us finance professionals is errors and omissions insurance. The Hartford Insurance offers this, and it's fairly inexpensive, but basically it's just a little bit of added protection, especially if you're going to go with a sole proprietorship, of being able to kind of it basically just kind of states that you're not fully responsible for some of these things, like any errors or omissions that take place. And then you got your business liability insurance. You can choose to do health insurance, and I ended up getting health insurance last year, slightly a little too late. I had my appendix almost rupture on me, and I had to get surgery. And at the time, I didn't have insurance because we were set up under my husband, and it's outrageously expensive through his business. And I was able to kind of get in touch with an actual like insurance agent, and he set me up with a health insurance provider that I could do medical, dental, and vision with for fairly inexpensive. And then you can also deduct that at the end of the year on your taxes too. So that is something that I definitely would encourage as well, especially if you're going to be hiring employees or anything like that. You could also get some kind of plan set up for that as well. And then let's talk about business credit just a little bit. And like I said, you're going to need to do it. But the reason that business credit is important is because it will actually allow you to make certain purchases within your business, make your business more lucrative. So it separates your personal assets. So whenever you think about your personal credit, you have a certain sliding number, usually somewhere between like 600 to 800 is where you want to be. But that is kind of sliding, and with personal credit, the more you spend, the less they want to give you because they don't want you to do that. Well, with business credit, it's actually the opposite. The more you spend, the more they encourage you to spend. And so they'll give you higher limits as opposed to your personal credit, where the more you spend, they like tend to lower your limits because they don't want you to do that because you're more of a risk. But with business credit, it gives you a larger credit limit, and it can separate your personal assets so that you don't have to worry about that. So like, for instance, if you purchased a vehicle under your business through your personal credit, then that technically is yours. But if something happens with the business and you bought a vehicle specifically for business, then that is going to go with the business. And that is actually a good thing, because if something happened with your business, then you're not personally financially responsible for it. The business is. The more you use, the more they want to give. And so basically what you want to do is ensure the business info matches. So here's just a few little snippets. So we already talked about getting a bank account set up that will kind of administer information to 3 different credit bureaus. But then you also want to make sure that your business info matches all across the board. So that's why, like I said, I went through and I revamped my website after I changed my name to the Math Magician Services LLC. I went on my website, I changed it to that. I changed my email to that. And I also, I think that's mostly what I did to get that going. And then I actually changed my email to reflect the Math Magician Services as well, because it was the Math Magician Bookkeeping. So make sure that's doing that. No Gmail, no Apple or whatever it is. Like I actually personally use Gmail for my emails, but I have a business email set up through my website. And instead of actually having to go into the stupid little website every single time, I actually have it set up from my Gmail account to send emails from my business email, if that makes sense. So instead of it showing up as mathmagicianbookkeeping@gmail.com, it shows up as inquiries@themathmagicianservices.com. And I'm still able to do it all through Google, which is really nice. And so there's a setting if you guys are interested in learning more about that to be able to do that. But then you need to get your phone number listed in the 411 directory and actually have a separate phone number for business. This is something I'm in the process of doing as well, of getting a separate phone number for my business because I use my personal number. And what's funny is my SIM card actually is capable of holding, or my phone is actually capable of using 2 SIM cards and being able to switch between those. So that's something that was really interesting to me. And then you want to register your EIN with all credit companies. And then there's a certain website that you want to get for 3 different credit scores. And it usually takes about a year to get everything going. And I've been personally interested in this. Well, I've reached out to a business credit professional as a referral partner. And that's how I know so much, is because they told me all of this. But basically, it was really interesting to me because there's certain things that I want to change within my business coming up soon. I would actually like to get a dedicated office, pretty much get like a little she shed, I suppose, and be able to set it up as my own little office because I like working here in the bus, but it would be nice to have a separate little building where I can just, do my thing without having to worry about it. But it would be nice to be able to purchase that with the business credit if need be. So speaking of your website and email, make sure that you have a good website set up. Make sure that it looks professional, but it reflects who you are as well. So, like for me, I wanted to be slightly whimsical because of the magician being in the name. So, I went slightly whimsical, but also kind of dialed it back into where it's professional. I hope it's professional enough at least. And then, not just throwing a bunch of random stuff out there, making sure it's easy to navigate because there's nothing more irritating to me than getting on someone's page and it just being like from the 1950s, like it's just, you can tell it's a dinosaur and then hasn't been updated in a while and nobody cares. There's no information of contacting them and you're like, how am I supposed to get a hold of this person? To me, it loses a lot of credibility for me if I'm searching for them on Google and they don't have a website or they don't have contact information. That's just me personally, and I'm sure there's others that feel that way. So make sure that you have a good website set up. I'm sure there's tons of website developers out there that would be more than happy to work with you. I personally set mine up on my own, but I am thinking of getting a website developer to kind of look through it and see if other changes need to happen, kind of like a little consultant, to give me an idea. And then use email associated with your website or Outlook account, like I was saying. Don't have it go to gmail.com. Don't have it say, what are the other things? Hotmail. Uh, what is the Apple one? iMail or something like that. What is Apple's? I cannot remember. Yahoo. You don't want it going to that. You want it to be a little more professional. Go it to your website, and like the website that I use, the company that I developed mine with is called Ionos, Ionos, and I was able to get a pretty decent deal with that. And then actually with my website and my domain, I was able to set up a email for I think like $1 extra a month or something like that. So you can get a website email that's pretty easy going. And even for a while, when I was just listed as the Math Magician Bookkeeping, I had just like kind of a dummy email setup where it said inquiries at themathmagicianbookkeeping.com. But I actually would forward any information from that to my Gmail account. And so if anybody emailed me at inquiries at themathmagicianbookkeeping.com, it would go straight to my Gmail because I cannot handle having multiple emails that I have to navigate through. So having everything set up in Gmail, I've been using it for a while. I had a Chromebook before I had this laptop, and so I just got more familiarized with Google's products, and it just made things a little bit easier for me. But if you're an Outlook person, that's totally okay too. It's still professional, and you can still set up an Outlook account specifically to your website. I have a client that they actually use Outlook, and their company name is Mountain Air, and it's really cute because it's a husband and wife, and the husband has his name at mountainairman.com and then her name at mountainairwoman.com. And so I just thought that was really cute how it's kind of separated, but it also leads back to the same website slash company, so you actually know what's going on. I thought that was really cute. So that is about the website and email. And then working remotely, things that you'll need to work remotely. A laptop / good computer, so desktop, whatever you need. Like I said, I had a Google Chromebook, and I loved that thing for a while. And unfortunately, my dog knocked it off. My touchpad got messed up, and I took it in actually to get repaired through Best Buy. And while I was there, they were like, "Oh, it's going to probably be like a 3-week long repair. Is that okay?" And I was like, "Well, no, because I need some kind of computer for my bookkeeping business." And so they actually had this on sale. It's a Lenovo, I don't know what the heck it is, a Lenovo IdeaPad 3, and it runs Windows, which is good for me to use with other things. I hate Windows, but there's certain applications that you have to use through Windows, unfortunately. But it's been a good computer. I hate the battery. The battery is like really stupid, but I got it for $300, so I can't complain that much. And it gets the job done, and it has a decent webcam. I don't look like a distorted, crazy image. At least I hope not. But make sure that you got a good laptop / computer, something to be able to run your applications on, get your email, run QuickBooks, so on and so forth. And then along with that comes reliable internet. And this is funny from me saying this because I live out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And even whenever I didn't live in the middle of nowhere a few years ago, they did not provide internet in that area. And they did, but it was like really expensive for really crummy internet. And so I would use my phone hotspot the majority of the time. But then I also got this thing called a Skyroam hotspot, and I'm basically able to kind of load up as much data that I want on that thing, and then it actually works really well for the most part. It gets the job done. I would love to have actual normal internet, but unfortunately that's just not provided in this area right now, so just using a hotspot is fine. You can also go to a public place, but just make sure that you're on a protected network, like a VPN or something. But just having some reliable internet, because if you're especially going to be doing things through QuickBooks or Xero or any of the other cloud-based softwares, you're going to need some kind of internet to get you through. And then also some kind of accounting subscription. So like I said, basically you want to, if you're going to be doing QuickBooks, have a QuickBooks Online accountant account set up. If you're going to be doing Xero, make sure that you have an accountant's thing set up with them. That way you can go ahead and get all your people in your little accountant group and be able to kind of look in your dashboard and work with those people. I don't know if anything that I said just made sense. And then something else that I've found to be really valuable is having a remote desktop set up as well. I know there's certain applications, like you can use Splashtop to be able to connect to people's remote desktops. And then there's also just having kind of a remote desktop installed. Some companies will actually provide it for you, but there have been a fair share of people that I've worked with that use QuickBooks Desktop, or sometimes I actually have to get into their desktop to be able to see things. But for instance, I had a client that lived out in Knoxville, and that's about a 2-hour drive for me. And I would go out there probably once a quarter to go over everything in detail with them. But in between that time, I was having to connect to them remotely. And I was very grateful to be able to do that, because I did not want to be driving out there all the time, having him over my shoulder while I did work at his specific desktop. And then there was a company I recently just did a little project for over the holidays, and they gave me a remote desktop to their computer or to their company computer so that way I could access that at pretty much any time, which was super nice that I could just do it from the comfort of my home. So I would recommend looking into a remote desktop. You may not be even needing to use QuickBooks Desktop or anything like that, but it does come in handy to look at certain things. And then I would recommend investing in Zoom if you haven't already. It's kind of a well-known application to use at this point. But Zoom is very helpful for having meetings with potential clientele, referral partners, anyone you can think of. Honestly, I probably should have used Zoom for this meeting today because now I can actually use Zoom to share my screen and be able to demonstrate for you guys a little better. And I can do it in kind of a live atmosphere. So that is something I would definitely recommend doing. And if you don't want to do Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, want something that allows you to be able to do something with like a video call. It really means a lot to people wanting to do phone consultations and stuff. And then also be willing to meet elsewhere. You don't have to do this all the time as a remote bookkeeper, but be willing to meet at certain places. And I'm not saying you have to drive 2 hours to Knoxville like I did. I'm just crazy. But I'm talking more so if someone wants to meet at the coffee shop right down the road to have a little meeting with you, do it. Because that face-to-face interaction still really does go a long way. I mean, obviously, if there's COVID and other stuff going on, then don't put yourself at risk. But you know what I mean. So that's pretty much it for setting up everything. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was bookkeeping fundamentals, but that is going to be included in the course that I was talking about. So for all of you that missed the very beginning of this video, there is a course that Bryce and I are putting together. He's going to be talking about the marketing side of things. I'm going to be going over your business up and running as a bookkeeper or someone new to bookkeeping. So I'm kind of going to go over what I just told you guys about all those points that we just mentioned in the past 45 minutes. But then I'm also going to add in some stuff and actually teach about bookkeeping. So, bookkeeping fundamentals. What is bookkeeping? Why is it important? Going over income versus expense, assets, liabilities, equity, going over accounts payable, accounts receivables, the accounting equation, debits versus credits, chart of accounts. There's a different way in which people organize their business, and that could be a job cost accounting or it could be process accounting, and depending on that, how their chart of accounts get set up. And then looking over financial statements and being able to actually show those to your clients and give them an idea of what's going on. And then something else that I'll probably eventually add on is more business advisory stuff, because that's something that I'm actually in the process of learning as well. But it's been very valuable and an added income to myself. Probably like I pretty much can charge like $1,000 a client for this one specific thing, but it's cash flow management and profit forecasting. So being able to actually look and see how their cash flow is doing, and then being able to determine what their profit is going to look like in the future. And so I'm kind of learning a little bit more about that, and I'd love to be able to pass it on to you guys. But yeah, basically, once we go through the bookkeeping fundamentals, then we're going to be doing specifically to QuickBooks Online training, because that's kind of the most popular accounting software and it's probably the easiest for new bookkeepers to use. It's real easy to get started with. And so basically, I want to do a whole section of training you through QuickBooks, having you do it with me, kind of hand holding, stuff like that, and then being able to do it with a live video and also like recorded videos. That way you'll always have a resource to go back to. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of y'all watching this would be interested in something like that. This is an idea that we've been kind of throwing out for a while because, like I said at the very beginning, I remember what it was like first starting out, kind of feeling slightly embarrassed, not knowing where to begin, wanting to get there, but then also feeling kind of silly of like, why am I trying to pursue bookkeeping whenever I'm not even like that well versed in it? It's something that I know enough of to get me somewhere, but not enough of to justify starting a business. And so I want to be able to help you guys out there that are in that kind of situation. Like, I really want to get started, but I don't know how. And being able to even figure out something as simple as what's the difference between the legal structures, how to set up a name. I mean, you can look up all this stuff on Google, but sometimes it's easy to have someone kind of tell you face to face. So, anyways, if y'all are interested in doing something like that, I'm going to leave a link in the description below, and you can book a call with Bryce, and we can get some things started for you guys. We'll have probably 2 different classes set up, one specifically for people that just want to learn marketing, and then others that are wanting to learn how to do everything. And I'll be the one teaching the bookkeeping side of things, and he'll be the one teaching the marketing because that's what he's best at, and I enjoy teaching. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. If you have any questions before I jump off of here, I'm going to give you just a few minutes. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful. I know it wasn't like a full on, let's talk about all the fundamentals right here at this moment, but it is a lot of information. I mean, I went through and wrote down like there's so much stuff on here. And it just keeps going. And then once you actually get into QuickBooks and use a sample company, it's just like never ending knowledge. And that is one thing I will say about QuickBooks and being a pro advisor is it's not one of those things where it's like a one and done, like getting your driver's license. Like you are required every single year to re-up your pro advisor certification with QuickBooks because they're constantly making changes. Not just like completely different changes where you'll never know what's going on, but they want you to be able to understand the product and then to also be able to help your client understand the product. So they are very good about doing that and keeping up, and it definitely makes it much easier trying to do something that such as that. But anyway, I suppose that is pretty much it. Like I said, I'll give you just a few more minutes here. But yeah, I mean, everybody else watching after the fact that this has been done, just, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And, even if you're not interested in doing the bookkeeping fundamentals, but you're wanting to know how to grow your business and get more clientele, then I would still book a phone call with Bryce and see how he can help you out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.